Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States, was a real estate developer and businessman known for his involvement in various ventures worldwide. He owned, managed, or licensed his name to hotels, casinos, golf courses, resorts, and residential properties. Trump also expanded into retail with branded lines of clothing, cologne, food, and furniture, as well as establishing Trump University for real estate education. His private conglomerate, the Trump Organization, consisted of around 500 companies spanning diverse industries such as hotels, resorts, residential properties, merchandise, and entertainment. Donald Trump, the fourth child of Frederick, Fred, Christ Trump and Mary McLeod, came from a family involved in real estate development. His sister, Marion Trump Berry, had a successful career as a judge, serving in the U.S. District Court and later on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. Donald's elder brother, Frederick Jr., Freddie, briefly worked in their father's business before becoming an airline pilot, but sadly, his life was cut short due to alcoholism. Fred Trump, Donald's father, began his real estate ventures in the late 1920s, constructing single-family and row houses in Queens and Brooklyn. In the late 1940s, he expanded his projects to include thousands of apartment units, primarily in Brooklyn, utilizing federal loan guarantees intended to promote affordable housing. During World War II, Fred also built federally backed housing for naval personnel and shipyard workers in Virginia and Pennsylvania. In 1954, Fred faced scrutiny from the Senate Banking Committee for potentially misusing the loan guarantee program. It was alleged that he deliberately overestimated project costs to secure larger loans from commercial banks, enabling him to profit from the difference between loan amounts and actual construction costs. Fred admitted during Senate testimony that he had built the Beach Haven apartment complex in Brooklyn for $3.7 million less than his government-insured loan. Although he was not charged with a crime, he became ineligible for federal loan guarantees as a result. In a separate investigation a decade later, Fred was found to have used profits from a state-insured construction loan to build a shopping center solely owned by him. He eventually returned $1.2 million to the state, but he was thereafter unable to obtain state loan guarantees for residential projects in Brooklyn's Coney Island area. After completing his education, Donald Trump joined his father's business full-time and played a key role in managing their extensive rental housing holdings. In 1974, he became the president of the Trump Organization, a conglomerate of Trump-owned corporations and partnerships. However, during the 1960s and early 1970s, Trump-owned housing developments faced allegations of racial discrimination in New York City, Cincinnati, and Norfolk. In 1973, Donald and his father were sued by the U.S. Justice Department for alleged violations of the Fair Housing Act in the operation of 39 apartment buildings. The Trumps countersued but eventually settled the case without admitting guilt. During the late 1970s and 1980s, Donald Trump expanded his father's business by focusing on luxury hotels and residential properties, primarily in Manhattan and later in Atlantic City. He relied heavily on financial support from his father and his father's connections in New York City. Trump made notable investments, such as the refurbishment of the Commodore Hotel into the Grand Hyatt Hotel and the development of Trump Tower, a prominent mixed-use complex housing his residence and the headquarters of the Trump Organization. Other notable Manhattan properties developed by Trump in the 1980s included Trump Plaza, Trump Park, and the historic Plaza Hotel. In June 2015, Donald Trump announced his candidacy for the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Running on the slogan, "Make America Great Again," he promised to create jobs, punish companies that outsource jobs, repeal the Affordable Care Act, revive the coal industry, reduce the influence of lobbyists, withdraw from the Paris Agreement on climate change, impose tariffs on unfair trade practices, build a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border, and implement a ban on Muslim immigration. These policy positions were outlined in his book, Crippled America: How to Make America Great Again. During his campaign, Trump positioned himself as a political outsider, which resonated with conservative voters, particularly those in the Tea Party movement. Despite controversies, including his use of inflammatory language and controversial remarks on social media, Trump maintained popularity among his supporters. He often topped opinion polls, surpassing established Republican politicians. However, his remarks drew criticism for their racism, sexism, belligerence, and the perception of indulging in name-calling. Trump faced backlash for initially failing to condemn the Ku Klux Klan and for not denouncing racist elements among his supporters. While Trump's comments worried the Republican establishment, his supporters appreciated his combativeness and viewed his unfiltered statements as a display of honesty and courage. This summary highlights Trump's campaign strategy as a political outsider, his controversial remarks, and the mixed reactions they generated among the public and the Republican Party. After a setback in the Iowa caucuses, Donald Trump regained momentum in the 2016 Republican primary race by winning the next 3 contests and performing well on Super Tuesday. Following a decisive victory in the Indiana primary, Trump became the presumptive Republican nominee as his remaining opponents dropped out. In July, he announced Indiana Governor Mike Pence as his running mate. During the Republican National Convention, Trump officially became the party's nominee and used the platform to heavily criticize Hillary Clinton, the presumptive Democratic nominee. He blamed her for the Benghazi attack and accused her of mishandling classified emails through a private server. Trump's repeated references to Clinton as "crooked Hillary" and his promise to have her jailed if elected were highly unusual in American politics. Despite a 2019 report by the U.S. State Department finding no persuasive evidence of deliberate mishandling of classified information by Clinton, Trump continued his attacks on her throughout the campaign. It's worth noting that the threat to imprison a political opponent was unprecedented in modern U.S. political history and lacked a constitutional basis for a president's authority. 8 days after the final debate, FBI Director James Comey announced the reopening of the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails, which provided a boost to the Trump campaign. However, 6 days later, Comey stated that the newly discovered emails contained no incriminating evidence. Despite the negative impact of Comey's announcement, Clinton maintained a slight lead over Trump in swing state polls. On November 8, 2016, Trump achieved surprising victories in critical Rust Belt states, securing his election as president. Although he won the Electoral College, Trump lost the popular vote by over 2.8 million votes. Following the election, Trump made unsubstantiated claims about widespread illegal voting for Clinton. Trump was inaugurated as the 45th President of the United States on January 20, 2017. Trump's victory led to discussions about polling accuracy and strategic errors made by the Clinton campaign, including the failure to engage key demographics such as women and minorities, while Trump successfully appealed to the economic concerns and racial biases of some working-class whites. Upon assuming office, President Trump wasted no time in signing a series of executive orders aimed at fulfilling his campaign promises and projecting a sense of decisive action. His initial orders included minimizing the economic and regulatory burdens of the Affordable Care Act, ACA, and initiating planning for the construction of a wall along the southern border. Trump also issued an order on ethics, imposing a 5-year ban on lobbying by former executive branch employees while loosening certain lobbying restrictions implemented during the Obama administration.